I never thought my father's 70th birthday would end with me exposing my own brother's betrayal. But looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there for years. I just didn't want to believe them. My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 35, I'm the youngest of 3 children. My brother Mike is 42, the oldest and the self-proclaimed head of the family since Mom passed 5 years ago. Our sister Kate, 38, usually follows his lead, though I've always suspected she does it more out of convenience than conviction. Dad's birthday dinner was supposed to be a celebration. I'd reserved a private room at Giovanni's, his favorite Italian restaurant, the same place we used to go for special occasions when Mom was alive. The same place where, 15 years ago, they'd hosted my college graduation dinner. But now, sitting at the elegantly set table, watching my brother's face turn red with rage, I realized this night would be remembered for very different reasons. "You had no right to that money," Mike's voice echoed off the restaurant's walls. "Dad needed it for his care." I took a slow sip of water, trying to maintain my composure. The other diners in the main restaurant had gone quiet, no doubt straining to hear the drama unfolding in our private room. Dad sat at the head of the table, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he gripped his napkin. He looked smaller somehow, more fragile than I remembered. "Mike," I said quietly, "maybe this isn't the best time." "When is the best time, Emma?" He spat my name like it was poison. "When Dad's penniless. When we have to sell his house because his own daughter stole his inheritance." Kate nodded along, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her wine glass. "We're just worried about Dad's future, Emma. That money was meant for his care." I looked at my father, seeing the confusion and hurt in his eyes. He'd been different since Mom died, more withdrawn, less certain of himself. The sharp accountant who'd taught me everything I knew about finance had been replaced by a man who sometimes forgot to pay his bills. It broke my heart, but not as much as what I discovered 3 months ago. "Dad's future," I repeated softly. "Is that what you're calling it?" Mike stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Don't you dare take that tone with us. We're the ones who've been taking care of him while you're off playing big-shot investment banker in the city." I felt my cheeks flush. It was true. I'd moved to Boston for my job at Marshall and Sterling Investment Group, while Mike and Kate stayed in our hometown of Worcester. They made sure I never forgot it, though they conveniently overlooked the fact that I drove the hour back every weekend to visit Dad. "Taking care of him?" I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. "Is that what you call what you've been doing?" Kate reached across the table, her expression a practiced mask of concern. "Emma, honey, we know you're upset about the inheritance, but Grandma Louise left that money for all of us." "No," I cut her off. "Grandma left that money for Dad's care. All $240,000 of it. And now only $80,000 is left." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad looked up sharply, his fork clattering against his plate. This was news to him, exactly as I'd suspected. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Louise left me $240,000. Mike shot me a look that could have frozen hell. "Dad, don't get worked up. Emma's just trying to cause trouble." "I have the original will right here," I said, reaching for my briefcase, along with some other interesting documents. "Give back the $80,000, Mike snarled, "or I swear to God, Dad's going to Pine Grove tomorrow." Pine Grove. The mere mention of that place made my stomach turn. It was the cheapest nursing home in Worcester County, with a history of violations and neglect complaints. Mike knew how much the threat of sending Dad there would hurt me. "Funny you mention money," I said, pulling out a thick folder, "because I've spent the last 3 months tracking exactly where Dad's savings went." My hands were steady as I opened the folder, though my heart was racing. I practiced this moment in my head 100 times, but now that it was here, I could barely breathe. The documents inside represented months of careful investigation, countless hours spent piecing together the truth about what my siblings had done. "Dad," I said gently, "do you remember signing any large checks recently? Or authorizing any major withdrawals?" He frowned, rubbing his forehead. I don't think so." "Mike handles all that now. He said it was easier." "Yes, he does." I pulled out the first bank statement. "Mike's been handling a lot of things, like the $50,000 withdrawal made the day after he got power of attorney, or the $30,000 transfer to an account in Kate's name 2 months later." Kate's face went pale. Mike's hands clenched into fists. "You shut your mouth," he growled. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm a financial analyst, Mike. Following money trails is literally my job. I spread more documents across the table. Would you like to explain why Dad's retirement savings have been steadily disappearing into your personal accounts? Or should we talk about the mysterious payments to Sullivan Consulting, a company that, according to state records, you created 3 months after Mom died? Dad's hands were shaking harder now. Mike, what is she saying? Don't listen to her, Dad. Kate jumped in. Emma's always been jealous that you trusted Mike more. I trusted him because you told me to. Dad's voice cracked. You both said I couldn't manage on my own anymore, that I needed help. And they took advantage of that trust, I said softly. They've been systematically draining your accounts, Dad. The inheritance from Grandma Louise, your retirement savings, even the life insurance money from Mom. It's almost all gone. The weight of my words seemed to physically hit Dad. He slumped in his chair, looking every one of his 70 years. Mike and Kate exchanged panicked glances. That's a lie, Mike said, but his voice had lost its certainty. We used that money for Dad's expenses. Really? I pulled out another document. Is that why Kate made a down payment on a beach house in Cape Cod 3 weeks after a $45,000 withdrawal from Dad's account? Or why your gambling debts at Mohegan Sun were mysteriously paid off right after you transferred $35,000 from his savings? The color drained from Mike's face. Kate's hand flew to her throat. How did you find out? I finished for her. When Dad seemed confused about his finances during my visits, I started looking into things. Being his youngest daughter and a licensed financial advisor made it pretty easy to access his records. What I found made me sick. I turned to Dad, my heart breaking at the devastation on his face. They've taken almost everything, Dad. The $80,000 they're demanding I return, that's what I managed to save when I discovered what was happening. I transferred it to a secure account they can't access. You had no right, Mike started, but Dad held up a trembling hand. Stop. His voice was quiet but firm. Emma, show me everything. For the next 20 minutes, I walked Dad through the evidence I'd gathered. The unauthorized withdrawals, the suspicious transfers, the steady disappearance of the money that was supposed to support him in his retirement. With each revelation, he seemed to age another year. Mike and Kate sat in stony silence, their earlier threats forgotten as their scheme unraveled. The birthday dinner lay forgotten, the pasta growing cold, the celebratory champagne untouched. Finally, Dad looked up from the documents, his eyes filled with tears. My own children, he whispered. How could you? Dad, please. Kate reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Don't. He turned to me, his voice breaking. Emma, take me home. I stood gathering the documents back into my folder. Mike grabbed my arm as I helped Dad up from his chair. This isn't over, he hissed. I met his gaze steadily. You're right, it's not. The police fraud division gets these documents tomorrow morning. His grip tightened for a moment before he let go, his face a mask of fury and fear. Kate sat frozen, mascara running down her cheeks. As I led Dad out of the restaurant, I could feel the weight of the evening pressing down on both of us. The birthday dinner that had turned into a family implosion. The ugly truth that had finally come to light. I'm sorry, Dad, I said softly as we reached my car. I wanted to find a better way to tell you. He turned to me, his eyes tired but clear. You saved me, Emma. God knows what would have happened if you hadn't found out. I helped him into the passenger seat, fighting back my own tears. The night hadn't gone as planned, but maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something better. Something honest. As I drove Dad home through the quiet Worcester streets, I knew there would be more battles ahead. Mike wouldn't give up easily, and Kate. The morning after Dad's disastrous birthday dinner, I woke up on his living room couch to the smell of coffee. For a moment, it felt like any other weekend visit, until I heard him on the phone in the kitchen, his voice shaking with barely controlled anger. No, Mike, you don't get to explain. Not now. A pause. Don't you dare bring your mother into this. She would be ashamed of what you've done. I sat up quietly, my heart heavy. I'd stayed over at Dad's insistence, both of us knowing that leaving him alone after last night's revelations wouldn't be wise. The manila folder containing all the evidence still sat on the coffee table where I'd left it, its contents now burned into both our memories. I mean it, Michael. Don't come to the house. Don't send Kate. I need time to think. The sound of the phone being set down too hard echoed through the quiet house. I stood up, straightening my wrinkled clothes from yesterday, and made my way to the kitchen. Dad stood at the counter, his shoulders slumped, staring at the coffee maker as if it held answers to questions he'd never thought he'd have to ask. "Morning, Dad," I said softly. He turned, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Emma, I made coffee, though I suppose you probably want something stronger after last night." "Coffee's perfect." I took the mug he offered, noticing how his hands still trembled slightly. "Was that Mike? Your brother seems to think he can talk his way out of this." Dad's voice was bitter, a tone I'd never heard from him before. "Says there's more to the story than what the bank statements show. Claims he was investing the money for my future." He laughed, a hollow sound. "Funny how my future looks a lot like his new boat and Kate's beach house." I took a sip of coffee, buying time before responding. "The police will want to talk to you today. I can call them, or we can go to the station. Whatever makes you more comfortable." Dad sank into one of the kitchen chairs, suddenly looking every bit his age. "My own children. Emma, how do I file charges against my own children?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text, then another, and another. "Kate's busy this morning," I said, glancing at the messages. "How dare you? You've ruined everything. Dad needs us, not some stuck-up princess who visits twice a month." I set the phone down, ignoring the continuing vibrations. She's remembering a very different version of the past 5 years. They both are. Dad rubbed his temples. "Kate called at dawn, crying about how she only took the money because Mike convinced her it was for my own good. Said they were protecting me from my own bad decisions." He looked up at me, his eyes tired but clearer than they'd been in months. "Was I really that bad with money, Emma? Did I give them reason to think I couldn't manage?" "No, Dad." I sat across from him, reaching for his hand. "You were grieving. We all were. But Mom's death, they saw an opportunity. You were vulnerable, and they took advantage." A knock at the front door made us both jump. Through the window, I could see Mike's black SUV parked in the driveway. "I told him not to come," Dad muttered, starting to rise. "I'll handle it." I stood squeezing his shoulder as I passed. "Finish your coffee." Mike was already turning the key in the lock when I reached the door, the key he'd insisted he needed for emergencies. I slid the chain into place just as the door started to open. "Get out," I said through the crack. "This is ridiculous." Mike's face appeared in the gap, flushed with anger. "Let me in. I need to talk to Dad." "He doesn't want to see you. He made that pretty clear on the phone just now." "You think you're so clever, don't you?" Mike's voice dropped to a hiss. "One weekend a month you show up, playing the perfect daughter, while Kate and I do all the real work. You have no idea what it takes to care for him." "Care for him?" I felt my temper rising. "Is that what you call stealing his retirement? Draining his accounts?" "We protected him from himself. After Mom died, he was making crazy decisions. Talking about selling the house, giving money to charities. Those were his decisions to make," I snapped. "It was his money, his life. You didn't protect him, you robbed him." A shadow fell across the gap in the door as Mike leaned closer. "Listen carefully, little sister. If you go to the police, if you try to press charges, I'll make sure everyone knows about Dad's mental state. One evaluation, that's all it would take. Then we'll get full guardianship and your precious evidence won't mean a thing." My blood ran cold, but I kept my voice steady. "Are you threatening to have our father declared incompetent because he caught you stealing from him? I'm promising you that if you push this, you'll never see him again. Kate and I will make sure of it." "Is that what this is about?" Dad's voice behind me made us both start. I hadn't heard him approach. "More threats, Michael." "Dad, please." Mike's tone changed instantly, becoming placating. "Emma's turning you against us. We're your family." "No." Dad's voice was firm. "Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't threaten and manipulate. Get off my property, Michael." "Now." "Dad." I said now. Before I call the police myself. We listened to Mike's footsteps on the porch, then the slam of his car door. The SUV's engine roared as he backed out of the driveway too fast, tires squealing on the asphalt. Dad's hand was steady as he slid the chain off the door and turned both locks. "Well," he said quietly, "I suppose that makes the decision about going to the police easier." An hour later, we sat in the Worcester Police Department's Financial Crimes Division, across from Detective Sarah Martinez. She listened carefully as I laid out the evidence, occasionally making notes or asking for clarification. Unfortunately, this type of elder financial abuse is more common than people think, she said, reviewing the bank statements, especially when it involves family members with power of attorney. The good news is you've done an excellent job documenting everything. They'll say I gave them permission, Dad spoke up. That I knew what they were doing. Detective Martinez nodded. They might. But these transfers, the timing of them, the creation of shell companies, it shows a clear pattern of deception. Did you ever sign any documents authorizing specific transfers? No, Mike just said. He said he'd handle everything, that I didn't need to worry. Dad's voice cracked slightly. I trusted him. Mr. Sullivan, the detective leaned forward, her expression compassionate but professional. What your children did was criminal. They took advantage of your trust and your grief to systematically defraud you. We can help you recover some of what was taken, but you need to be prepared. This will likely mean criminal charges. Dad squared his shoulders. I understand. Do what you need to do. As we left the police station, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a series of texts from Kate. Mike told me what you did. I read aloud to Dad as we walked to the car. How could you go to the police? Don't you care what this will do to his kids? To my kids, we're talking about their college funds. College funds. Dad's laugh was bitter. Funded with my retirement, no doubt. More messages poured in. Threats, guilt trips, accusations. Then one that made me stop in my tracks. You have until 5 p.m. to withdraw the police report, I read. Or tomorrow morning, every local news station gets an anonymous tip about the respected William Sullivan's declining mental state, complete with video of some very confused moments. Think about your banking career, Emma. Who'll trust their money to someone who can't even protect their own father? Dad placed a hand on my arm. They're desperate. That's all this is. They're serious. I looked at him. Mike recorded you. Those times you were struggling after Mom died. Apparently, his face was tight with anger. Another betrayal to add to the list. I forwarded the threatening text to Detective Martinez, then blocked both Mike and Kate's numbers. As we drove home, Dad was quiet, staring out the window at the familiar streets of Worcester. I keep thinking about your mother, he finally said. How she made us all promise to take care of each other after she was gone. To stay a family. We are a family, Dad, just maybe not the one we thought we were. He nodded slowly. You know what the worst part is? I keep wondering how long they've been planning this. Even before your mother died, was Mike already thinking about how to get his hands on our money? Was Kate. I didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, I'd been wondering the same thing. How long had my siblings been plotting? How many family dinners, holiday gatherings, and Sunday visits had been part of their long game? As we pulled into Dad's driveway, I noticed a familiar car parked across the street. Aunt Susan, Mom's sister, stepped out and walked toward us, her face etched with concern. Billy, she called to Dad, using the nickname only she and Mom had ever used. Kate called me. She's hysterical, saying terrible things. What's happening to our family? Dad looked at me, then back at his sister-in-law. Come inside, Sue. It's time you knew the truth, too. Sometimes I realized as we walked into the house, the only way to save a family is to be willing to break it first, to shine a light on the darkness, no matter how much it hurts to see what's hiding there. The road ahead would be hard, legal battles, more confrontations, probably more threats. But watching Dad straighten his shoulders as he prepared to tell this story one more time, I knew we'd made the right choice. The truth, as painful as it was, had set us free. The next week passed in a blur of legal meetings, phone calls, and barely contained chaos. Mike and Kate made good on their threats, sort of. The local news stations did receive anonymous tips about Dad's mental decline, but Detective Martinez had already briefed them on the ongoing fraud investigation. Instead of running a story about Dad's supposed incompetence, Channel 7 began investigating a piece about financial elder abuse in Massachusetts. I was at my desk at Marshall and Sterling when the first photos appeared in my email. Screenshots of Dad looking confused at family gatherings, clearly taken without his knowledge. Video clips of him forgetting small details during conversations, all sent from an anonymous email address with a simple message, back off or these go public. They're getting desperate, Detective Martinez said when I forwarded her the email. This is good news, actually. People who feel cornered make mistakes. She was right. The very next day, Kate made a big one. I was at Dad's house, helping him sort through financial documents when Aunt Susan called. Emma, her voice was shaking. You need to know something. Kate just tried to convince me to sign a statement saying I witnessed your father giving her and Mike permission to use his money however they saw fit. Dad looked up from his papers, seeing my expression. What is it? I put the phone on speaker. She offered me money, Aunt Susan continued, her voice breaking. Said they'd pay off my credit cards if I helped them. When I refused, she threatened to tell everyone about Thomas's gambling problem. Thomas, my cousin, had struggled with addiction years ago. He'd been clean for nearly a decade, but Kate knew the family's shame about that dark period still lingered. What did you tell her? I asked, though I suspected I knew. I told her to go to hell. Aunt Susan's voice hardened. Your mother, my sister, would be horrified by what they're doing. I'm going to the police station this afternoon to report everything. After we hung up, Dad sat heavily in his armchair, the one Mom had reupholstered just months before she died. I keep thinking it can't get worse, he said quietly, that they can't sink any lower. And then, his voice trailed off as the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I saw two well-dressed men standing on the porch. Even before I opened the door, I knew who they were. Miss Sullivan. The older of the two men offered a business card. I'm James Wilson, representing your brother Michael Sullivan. This is my associate, Mr. Parker. May we come in? I glanced at the card, Wilson and Associates, Family Law, and felt my stomach tighten. No, you may not. Whatever you have to say, you can say to our lawyer. We've already spoken with Mr. Richardson, Wilson said smoothly. We're here to offer your father a chance to resolve this unfortunate situation without further damage to the family's reputation. You mean without criminal charges, I corrected. Emma? Dad appeared behind me. Let them in. I want to hear what Mike's willing to offer. The lawyers settled onto our couch, looking uncomfortably formal against Mom's old throw pillows. Wilson opened his briefcase with practiced efficiency. Mr. Sullivan, my client is prepared to return 50% of the disputed funds immediately, he began. In exchange, we ask that you sign this statement confirming that any financial transactions made by Michael or Catherine were done with your full knowledge and consent. And the other 50%, I asked, would be considered fair compensation for the care and management of Mr. Sullivan's affairs over the past 5 years. Dad's laugh startled all of us. It wasn't his usual warm chuckle, but something harder, almost cruel. Care and management, he leaned forward in his chair. Is that what we're calling theft now? Mr. Sullivan, Wilson's associate spoke up, your children are facing serious criminal charges. This offer represents a chance to maintain family harmony and avoid a messy public trial. Family harmony, Dad repeated slowly. My son stole my retirement savings. My daughter helped him do it. They threatened to have me declared incompetent when they got caught. And now they want to keep half of what they stole in exchange for not making my life even more miserable. He stood up, surprisingly steady. Get out of my house. Sir, I strongly urge you to consider. Get out. The lawyers gathered their papers, Wilson pausing at the door. We'll leave these documents for you to review. Please understand, if we can't resolve this privately, my clients are prepared to present evidence of your cognitive decline in open court. After they left, Dad and I sat in silence for a long moment. 50%, he finally said. They really thought they could keep half of what they stole. They're scared, I replied. Detective Martinez said the DA is pushing for felony charges. With the evidence we have, plus Aunt Susan's statement about Kate trying to bribe her. I should feel worse about this, shouldn't I? Dad looked at me, his eyes clearer than they've been in months. They're my children. I should want to protect them, even now. They stopped being worthy of your protection when they started stealing from you. He nodded slowly, then reached for the phone. I should call Bill Richardson, let him know what Mike's lawyers proposed. He paused, his hand hovering over the receiver. You know they'll do it, right? Release those videos, try to paint me as mentally incompetent. Let them try. I took up my phone, pulling up a text from Detective Martinez. The DA has subpoenaed Mike and Kate's bank records going back 6 years. They found transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands, wire transfers to offshore gambling sites, This stopped being just about stealing from you. They're looking at money laundering charges too. Dad's eyes widened. The Caymans? How much did they? We don't know yet. But Mike's lawyer wouldn't be offering a 50% settlement if they weren't terrified of what those records will show. The phone rang, making us both jump. It was Kate's number, but when I answered, I heard children's voices in the background. Aunt Emma, my niece Sophie's voice was small, uncertain. Mom's crying a lot. She says we might have to sell our house. Is that because of you? My heart clenched. Sophie was only 10. None of this was her fault. No, honey, I said gently. It's complicated grown-up stuff. Is your mom there? I heard rustling, then Kate's voice, thick with tears. Happy now? You're destroying my family. You did that yourself, Kate. The minute you decided stealing from Dad was okay. We needed that money. The kid's private school, the mortgage. You have no idea what it's like. You're right, I said quietly. I have no idea what it's like to steal from my father to maintain a lifestyle I can't afford. And I never will. I hung up before she could respond, but her words echoed in my head. The kid's private school. The mortgage. As if those things justified what she and Mike had done. Dad was watching me, his expression sad but resolute. Sophie. I nodded. Kate's playing the "you're hurting the children" card. They should have thought about their children before they committed fraud. Dad's voice was firm. Call Bill. Tell him we're rejecting any settlement offers. It's time Mike and Kate faced the consequences of their actions. As I dialed our lawyer's number, I realized something had changed in Dad. The confusion, the uncertainty of the past few years, it was gone. In its place was the strong, principled man who had raised us. The father I remember from before Mom's death. Sometimes it takes losing almost everything to remember who you really are. 6 months later, I sat in the Worcester County Courthouse, watching my siblings enter guilty pleas. Mike's confident swagger was gone, replaced by a defeated slump. Kate couldn't even look in our direction, her designer clothes exchanged for a modest gray suit that seemed to swallow her whole. The DA had uncovered over $400,000 in hidden transfers, more than double what we'd initially discovered. Money laundering, wire fraud, elder abuse, the list of charges went on. In the end, facing overwhelming evidence, they both took plea deals. Mike got 4 years in state prison. Kate, because she cooperated at the last minute, received 18 months, followed by another 18 months of house arrest. Both were ordered to pay full restitution. The court recognizes the unique pain of familial betrayal, the judge said during sentencing. But that same familial relationship makes these crimes all the more egregious. You didn't just steal money, you stole your father's trust, his security, and his peace of mind. Dad sat beside me, his back straight, his expression unreadable as his oldest children were led away. It wasn't until we got to the car that he finally spoke. Sophie asked to come live with me, he said quietly, starting the engine. During Kate's sentence. I looked at him surprised. What did you say? I said yes. He pulled out of the parking lot, his hand steady on the wheel. Her father's not in the picture, and Kate's parents aren't up to raising a 10-year-old. Besides, he smiled slightly, it might be good for both of us. And it was. Over the next year, Dad's house came alive again with the sound of children's laughter. Sophie brought light back into rooms that had been dark since Mom died. She started at the local public school, made new friends, joined the soccer team. And Dad flourished. We sold the beach house and boat and recovered most of the hidden money. The restitution payments would eventually make him whole financially, but the emotional healing took longer. Still, having Sophie there helped. She gave him a purpose, a reason to stay sharp and engaged. I moved back to Worcester, taking a position at a smaller firm that actually paid better than my Boston job. Every Sunday, the three of us had dinner together, a new tradition to replace the old, painful ones. Mike's wife divorced him while he was in prison and moved to Ohio with their kids. Kate's sentence ended, but Sophie chose to stay with Dad, visiting her mother on weekends. Some wounds, it turned out, weren't easily healed. Today marks 1 year since the sentencing. I'm sitting in Dad's backyard, watching him teach Sophie how to grow tomatoes in Mom's old garden. There's gray in his hair and lines around his eyes. But he's strong again, clear-headed and purposeful. Emma, Sophie calls out, holding up a ripe tomato. Look what we grew. Dad catches my eye and smiles. a real smile, reaching all the way to his eyes. We lost a lot that night at his birthday dinner when the truth finally came out. A brother, a sister, the illusion of a perfect family. But we gained something too. Truth, trust, a chance to rebuild something genuine from the ashes of what was lost. Coming to help, I called back, setting down my laptop and heading to the garden. My phone buzzes, a text from Kate, her weekly attempt at reconciliation. Miss you. Maybe we could have coffee sometime. Maybe someday. But not yet. For now, I'm focused on this new family we've built. Smaller, perhaps, but stronger. More honest. Dad hands me a trowel, his gardening gloves leaving dirt smudges on my sleeve. Your mother always said gardens were like families, he muses. You have to tend them carefully, pull the weeds before they can take root. I look at him, understanding the metaphor, and sometimes you have to start over completely. He nods, watching Sophie carefully place a tomato plant in freshly turned soil. But if you do it right, if you build on solid ground. He trails off, smiling at his granddaughter. It grows back stronger, I finish. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across Mom's garden, now Dad and Sophie's garden. In the distance I hear lawn mowers, children playing, the normal sounds of a Worcester Sunday. Life goes on. Families change, and sometimes the hardest choices lead us exactly where we need to be. Sophie calls us over to see another ripe tomato, her face beaming with pride. Dad wraps an arm around her shoulders, then holds out his other arm to me. We stand there together, this unexpected new family, breathing in a smell of fresh earth and growing things. Some things, once broken, can never be repaired. But other things, if you're lucky, grow back stronger in the broken places.